Good afternoon. Welcome to the Capital Investment Committee meeting for March 30th, and call the meeting to order. I guess we're all here. Great. I need item number one, approval of the minutes for January 26th.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, passes 4-0. Item number two, consideration of sanitary sewer request for the property located at 1134 Beach Tavern Trail.
This is a property that is located adjacent to the Highgate subdivision. If we could open up Exhibit A, it'll give you a better overview of where this property is located. If you'll remember, we had a special assessment district to provide sanitary sewer service through a low-pressure force main to the Highgate subdivision. For whatever reason, these properties that are inside our UGB but outside the city limits were not included in that special assessment district. The property owner is requesting to be denied for sanitary sewer availability, which is what the staff recommendation is. The residents paid on average about $7,000 per property. Had the Beaches Tavern Trail properties been included, it would have reduced their cost to around $5,600. One item to note is that if you open up Exhibit B, the property owner is proposing to subdivide the property within the county and build septic systems, and would actually build septic, or these houses would be in the hilltop overlay. So I just want to make sure we pointed that out, and that can be seen on Exhibit B. Staff's recommendation is to deny sanitary sewer availability.
Any,
Which means they're going,
Questions?
they want how many houses?
Their plan is to subdivide this lot into two properties and to do that through the county and the county process, and then install a septic system on the property.
where exactly on Franklin Road is this?
This is actually in the Highgate subdivision, actually up into the subdivision. I don't know that.
On the top of it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I thought. So right back there, if you're looking at Exhibit A, would be in the red area that you're noting.
Yes, the red area is the actual property that,
So why would we deny this again, since Seward is, right, how far away from sewer are they?
sewer is there.
But it's because of the terrain?
No,
they-
sewer is there and can be provided. It really has to do with the fact that we
Yeah.
have an existing ongoing legal battle with all of our special assessment districts, and we're advised by our law department not to further complicate it, is what I'd say, by bringing in a new person into that lawsuit,
Awesome.
as
Yeah,
I understand it.
right.
You said
Move to
something.
deny.
So, all right, do I have a second?
Sure, second.
All right, so do we have, then, if all this is litigated, at some other point, they can come back? if
They can
need
come
to?
back at any point, and we can, if the board is willing to provide service, the service is available if decided by the board.
All right.
But
is
they
there-
have to pay for
Right,
it?
They
yeah,
will have to pay for it, yes.
Yeah,
I'm out of the special assessment district business.
yeah. So, all right, so any other questions up here? Ann, did you have, Alderman Peterson?
I won't say any support for our special assessment districts. However, isn't this one of the places where they had a lot of failures?
They've had
Yes.
2 or 3.
Yes.
Correct.
At least that many.
Yeah,
Well, it'll
I'm
be
concerned about that.
permitted and evaluated by the county. It's an existing lot, so if it cannot perk or they cannot provide a
Okay.
septic
Then
system,
they can
the
decide
county
that
can
way.
say no to
Good
this.
enough.
Mhm.
Can I ask one question? You said
Sure,
it was
Mr. Mayor?
in the hilltop overlay?
The property, as you can see in the exhibit, is
It's
totally located, or
Yeah, it's in the-
almost totally located in the Hilltop Overlay District. There's a small fringe of where they are potentially allowed to do something, which is that lighter green color. The darker green color is a no-build area within the Hilltop
were in the
Overlay
city.
District, if they were in the city.
And this whole area is in the county. they're
Highgate is in
looking-
the city.
in the city.
Pardon?
So.
No, I'm talking about the area that we're
Yes.
That's correct.
talking
The
about
entire
right now,
parcel's in the county.
So they can build in the
Yes.
hilltop overlay?
in the
They
county.
can in the
In the
county.
county.
In the county, they may be
But we
able to.
can't annex it without a request.
Well, we
True.
could require them
So-
to do the annexation process to
If they
provide
want
sewer.
sewer,
But they don't want sewer.
but they don't want
They do
sewer.
not want sewer. That is
No.
correct.
So there you go.
So you're gonna have another ugly house on top of a hill?
Potentially, if the county approves it and it goes through that process, yes.
So let me ask.
Thank the state legislature for
Yeah,
that.
so, does the city care to, no, I know, usually doesn't get us anywhere, but does the city care to send a letter to the county?
About what?
Requesting, they do not, it's in our UGB.
If that's the direction from the board, we would be happy.
I think we should. I
Happy
mean,
to do
I
that.
think it's wrong to be silent on it. It's on the Hilltop overlay, it's, and there'd be another septic, right there where sewer is available, and the other thing is,
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
I don't know, I would think that I would request that the city send a letter, stating the objections that we have that this development would take place.
Yeah, we can
For
send a
those
letter.
various reasons, sewer, septic, hilltop overlay, a number of things, everything that you just mentioned here.
We would be happy to do
Yeah.
that. We can work
I
with our planning
request it.
department to do that.
Anybody else interested in that letter being sent?
It's fine with me.
I mean, it may not mean anything, but at least we haven't been silent on it.
If you'll notice in Legends Ridge, it's a great example
Mhm.
of building on the hilltop overlay and what a rape of our city.
Absolutely.
And it's hills and it's landscape. It's just terrible.
Yeah, all right.
It
All right,
also occurs to
Alderman
me that
Skinner.
If we pass on this
Mhm.
and they get approved by the county, they can build in the hilltop overlay.
I think that's what-
And then if the
Mhm.
septic systems fail, then they'll come to us saying, now we want to be annexed. So they sort of circumvented our
They
hilltop
got what they
overlay.
want without having to do anything.
Well, if there's nothing there now, and they build, correct, and they put in a septic system, that would be years down the road. Usually your new septics aren't gonna fail.
Mhm.
You mean
Or-
they would have,
Their septic system that they put
Yeah.
in to build is gonna be good for years.
maybe not.
Usually they are.
And so
Yeah, it
will
should
the
be.
house that
I
they build
know, I know people have them in
in the
30
height
and 40
overlay.
years,
So it's.
but it depends. So,
As I
but,
said, thank
could-
the state legislature, but our hands are tied.
But-
yeah.
And I would say that
Hmm.
there is an option to approve availability contingent upon annexation too. That is something that we have done in the past, if the
But-
will of the board, so.
But then, here's
Then we're
this,
playing the same game.
then we also, okay, so we'll give sewer upon annexation, but if you annex, then you're in the hilltop overlay and you can't build.
Can't build. Yep, right. That is exactly why the property owner does not want, he decided to have the
Yeah.
availability denied as his request.
All right, we've had a motion, we've had a second, is there any other discussion?
This is one item too that if the board, or if y'all would like to, we could move it to the work session too versus
Well,
typically.
It's not gonna change the result.
yeah.
We can't annex it without a request. We're not going to be asked to annex it.
No.
And the only reason they're here asking to be
That's right.
denied is because the county won't approve their project without a letter from us saying we're not gonna give them sewer. They're only here as a perfunctory
Yeah.
asinine exercise. Let's get on with it. I
All
don't
right.
like the result, but complaining about it doesn't change anything.
So we have a motion to deny with a second. All in favor? To
Aye.
deny,
Aye.
to deny? Aye. All opposed?
I think I will oppose it.
All right. So 3 yeas, 1 no. Alderman Martin, 4 no. All right, thank you. The motion passes to deny sewer.
The next one's the same, isn't it?
Number 3,
Another
pass to
lot.
deny sanitary sewer request for the property located at 1126 Beach Tavern Trail. Do I have a motion?
Move to deny sanitary sewer.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right.
Now, where
Any
is this?
discussion? Same,
Same.
across the street.
Same.
Not across the street,
Well, right in
like
the
next
same
door.
area,
Just
right
directly
next door.
adjacent.
Right
Just to the
next
south.
door.
Same thing. Any discussion on the matter?
Is this in the hilltop overlay?
Yes, this
Yes,
property
ma'am.
is 100% located in the hilltop overlay.
All right. Any other questions? We have a motion to deny with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes to deny, 3 to 1. Alderman Martin is of the no. All right. Number 4, consideration of irrigation repair agreement with the Founder's Point Homeowners Association in the amount of $30,000.
So as part of the sidewalk project on Highway 96, we had purchased easements from the HOA. The irrigation was very difficult to understand where the lines were. What we told them during the negotiation process was that we would repair any irrigation that we tore up. Unfortunately, it paralleled the roadway, and so we destroyed a significant amount of their irrigation. The city debated whether to try to repair it ourselves. Ultimately, we didn't want to get into an endless project with the HOA, and we felt that the more appropriate option is to pay their landscaper, pay the HOA damages and allow the HOA to fix it. We did negotiate
Do their
a
work.
price of $30,000, which is an appropriate price for the
Move
project.
approval.
All right. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Passes 4-0. Item number 5, consideration of amendment number 1 with Heathcote and Davis for the Holiday Court Sewer Pump Station Replacement Project.
The initial project, the scope of the project
Eric?
entailed the new pump station itself and did not include the force main. As we dug further into the project, the force main, when we evaluated it, it appeared that it would be beneficial to replace that during the same time, hence the amendment for the design of the force main here.
All right.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-1, or 4-0, sorry. Number 6, consideration of draft professional service agreements with Civil Infrastructure Associates for the Goose Creek Inn wastewater treatment plant sanitary sewer connection project in an amount not to exceed $52,710.
So this is associated with the Goose Creek Inn wastewater treatment plant that we're trying to take offline. We're working with the 3 property owners and have those agreements about 99% done. We're anticipating signatures on those, hopefully by the end of the month on those agreements to bring back to the board. What we're trying to do is get this contract in place, so as soon as we receive those signatures, we can initiate the design of the project with a goal really to try to get under construction in the summertime or in the late fall so that we can do the creek crossing of 5 Mile Creek during the dry period of the year. It would limit our risk and make the project significantly easier and hopefully bring down the cost. So our goal really is to get this contract in place, anticipating those signatures.
I have a question then. With the passing of Mr. Moore, is that going to hold up anything with their estate or with their?
No, they're planning to appoint an executor to the estate next
can-
week.
All right.
And the executor, as I'm told by their attorney, is going to have full right to execute this agreement, and they are fully on board to do that.
All right.
I move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. Number 7, consideration of amendment number 3 for the time extension to TDOT agreement for the Hunters Bend Elementary Safe Routes to School project.
So we received an open bids on this project in December of 2016, and then awarded the construction contract in February. The completion date, as it's with us and TDOT, is set for May 12th, 2017, and so TDOT typically does 1-year contract extensions, and so we're doing a contract amendment to extend that to allow us to get reimbursement. This is an agreement with TDOT, not the contractor. The contractor's under the same deadline.
Okay.
This just allows us to get reimbursement with the
Move
state.
approval.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 4-0. Number 8, consideration of draft amendment number 1 for the professional services agreement with Sullivan Engineering, Inc. for the final design of the East McEwen Drive Phase 4 improvement projects at a cost increase not to exceed $121,998.66. Jonathan, or who's on? Or-
Oh, this is McEwen Drive, I'm sorry.
It's
I was
McEwen Drive.
I was stuck on item
Sorry?
number 9, I apologize.
Right.
Number 8, so this agreement is or this amendment, is to allow for, there was some discussion about a year and a half ago with some property owners that actually front McEwen Drive. The original design showed their shared drive being a through street, and they were pretty
Right.
adamantly opposed to that. So we went back and did some redesign to do a cul-de-sac instead. Well, unfortunately, that required some significant changes and additional testing and geotechnical. And across the street, there we ran into a similar situation, if you recall the conversations last fall
Yep.
on Lewisburg Pike, where we had the discussion about sharing a private driveway along Lewisburg Pike with
Yeah.
property owners. We decided against that, so we went ahead preemptively and told our designer to modify the plans to show a cul-de-sac across the street to serve those property owners as well, which we knew would help us through the TDOT right-of-way process much more. So there's really not any kind of increased delay with this. The delay's already been incurred. It's just the amendment to actually pay for the services.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, thank you all for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we're to
Opposed?
item number 9. There you go, Paul.
All right, passes 4-0. Number 9, consideration of amendment number 3. Oops, sorry, went right off the scale, the screen. Consideration of amendment number 3 for professional service agreement with the CDM Smith, Inc. for Mac Hatcher Extension Project. Let's see, at the cost increase of $92,600.92.
This is a locally
Mhm.
managed project, which means that we are managing and
Yes.
overseeing the design associated with it. However, TDOT continues to request changes to the plans, such as additional geotechnical work, update the plans to meet new erosion control requirements and ADA requirements. And so when TDOT continuously requests these, our designer has been updating them. And have verbally talked with TDOT. They're in agreement to reimburse us all of these costs, and so we're recommending approval of this professional services agreement. You'll see an amendment come through between the city and TDOT that allows us to get that reimbursement, hopefully within the next month to 2 months. We are recommending approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah, I want to ask, why is it they keep doing this? Why do they keep
Yeah.
coming up with stuff that we need to do?
Well,
Can't they make up their minds?
we feel the same way at some times.
Well, do you ask them?
Design standards have
Maybe you need to
changed
sit
is
in
what it
on the
is.
meeting, Margaret.
Yeah, design standards have changed, and they will update their plans, is how TDOT does it, right before a bid or as they're getting ready to get it on a 3-year plan. They want the plans updated to the latest design standards. And that's essentially what's going on right now. And so that hopefully that's a good sign and good
That's a
news
good
for
thing.
us.
What?
That's a good thing.
Is it a
It's
good?
about making it bid ready.
That's what it's
Okay.
about.
Yeah, so it gets
All
it
right.
ready, so if they put us on the list, they can
That's
move
okay.
ahead.
I will say that there's probably going to be one more amendment with this contract, and what we would like to do, and TDOT's in agreement with this too, but it's not appropriate, with the Hillsborough Road job under construction now. Once that job is farther along, we want to go back out and resurvey some of the utilities and resurvey the as-built and update that section. If you recall, Mac Hatcher ties into Hillsborough Road. And so to avoid significant utility conflicts in construction, we've talked with TDOT, and eventually we'll come back and amend this hopefully one last time. And hopefully it'll
All
be
right,
put in that 3-year
We,
plan.
we have modified a little bit on Hillsborough so that it fits with the Mac Hatcher work, so we won't be redoing.
We
I think it's
have.
drainage, right?
Well, we've actually redone several, so there have been
Okay.
several utility conflicts, so the plans don't exactly, the ultimate construction project won't show exactly what the plans were drawn up to be, just to work around conflicts. But if you recall, a discussion we had last fall was to go ahead and have the city build a portion of Hillsborough Road that would have been built with Mac Hatcher.
right.
So we wouldn't be in the residents' yards within a few years of each other. So what Paul was kind of alluding to is we would go back later, survey that once it's built, so you'd have a proper as-built, so it actually helps TDOT build that project.
Well, I understand if you're in the middle of something and you run across something that has to be changed, I can understand that. But my question was, before we've even started it, these seem to be changing.
And there were several changes. If you recall, it originally was kind of the full context-sensitive design process, and then TDOT took out the roundabouts and put in signals.
Yeah.
And then we went from a 4-lane section to a 2-lane section. So every time they've made those modifications, it's required design revision. So that's kind of where we're at.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Number 10, item number 10, consideration of a draft professional service agreement with Barge, Wagner, Sumner, and Cannon for Columbia Avenue traffic signal timing in the amount not to exceed $36,300.
So, this is to update the signal timing along Columbia Avenue. We typically
Mhm.
try to do that every 2.5 to 5 years. As part of our annual budget, you approve our traffic count program where we go out and obtain 48-hour traffic counts at all major intersections. Every 3 to 5 years, we try to accomplish that goal. In addition to that, Barge Wagner, with their work on Columbia Avenue, has also updated some of those counts. And so with that information, it really just makes sense for us to revisit that timing. And it's safe to say that Columbia Avenue, while we're pushing it as hard and fast as we can, with the federal funding in it, it's gonna take time to get to construction. And so this can help provide some significant relief during that time frame to the business owners and general public that travels that street. This is out of the engineering approved budget, and so we are recommending approval of that.
All right. We have a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, Margaret, I'm sorry. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Number 11, consideration of draft professional agreement with Kimberly Horn and Associates for downtown Franklin traffic signal timing in the amount not to exceed $68,500.
This signal timing plan was last updated in 2011. Includes most of your all of your downtown, historic downtown intersections. And so we're recommending that we do this. The reason, this was approved as part of our annual budget. The reason we delayed it so long in bringing it forward was we had submitted to receive a grant to try to help pay for this, receive CMAQ money through the MPO, which we did not receive that funding, unfortunately. And so it's time to retime it, and we want to move this project forward, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do you have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, any discussion? So my question is, all these intersections that you've named here will all be timed and signaled to correspond with one another?
Yes, they'll all be
Yes.
coordinated.
And they are now, it's just that the timing's very out of date.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't flow real well.
Problems too.
Yeah.
Third Avenue.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. Number 12, consideration of draft ordinance 2017-09, an ordinance to replace Franklin Transportation and Street Technical Standards as adopted by reference in Title 16, Chapter 11 of the Franklin Municipal Code. Gentlemen?
If you could pull up the presentation, please.
All right.
Yes, that's it. Okay, so we've been working on updating our street standards for some time now, and I'll just walk you through what we would consider to be the major changes within those street specifications. So we'll talk about typical sections that are being updated, the adoption of the PROAG, public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, and the lighting standards, which we've been working on for about a year and a half now. So one of the things we're doing, this was not what drove us to update the standards, but we are updating the typical sections to match what was adopted as part of the Comprehensive Transportation Network Plan, just to make the two consistent. Just like any project, Columbia Avenue is a good example. We typically produce options for the board to look at and make a final determination on what option or what typical section is implemented on a corridor or roadway. The same thing happens with a PUD plan or a development plan as development comes through the process. These are really a guide that we use, and a lot of that is negotiated and site-specific. Where these are very beneficial for us to have is dedication of right-of-way to reserve right-of-way. And so as development occurs along a frontage of an arterial street, this helps set the guide of the amount of right-of-way that they need to dedicate long-term so that we can eventually build the streets. So again, these are really just being updated to match what was approved as part of the Comprehensive Transportation Network Plan. We also updated our development standards associated with traditional neighborhood developments. These are generally streets that you would see in like a West Haven or a Berry Farms. Again, these are a guide during the PUD entitlement process. These are typically negotiated and very site-specific to what the designer is trying to achieve. And so there's no major changes to these, but wanted to at least point that out that they were being modified slightly. And they're being modified really to match a lot of what the developers are doing today. One of the big changes we're recommending is the adoption of the proposed right-of-way and accessibility guidelines. The Department of Justice and the U.S. Access Board is the group that maintains ADA accessible guidelines, and they also are in the process of developing the PROAG standards of the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. They have not been officially adopted by the Department of Justice, but we're anticipating that in the next year to 2 years. Federal Highways Administration has recommended that all DOTs, Departments of Transportation, adopt these standards. TDOT has adopted them about a year ago, and so we're trying to get ahead of the curve and adopt them to incorporate them into our street standards and be in compliance, and very similar to exactly what TDOT is doing on state routes. Some of the big changes really relate to ramp design, handicap ramp design within the public right-of-way. And you can see our old design drawing, we had one. We're proposing to replace that with about 9 standard drawings, which is really what we need for developers to do and put on their plans and implement. And it's what we really need to be doing on our city streets. These, again, are very similar to what TDOT is doing, slightly modified to be more of a City of Franklin standard. The other big item in the PROAG standards relates to accessible parking within the public right-of-way. It is a requirement. We're anticipating, again, the DOJ adopting this and something we have to do. So if your parallel spots are metered or marked, you are required to have accessible parking in the public right-of-way. So we incorporated a design standard that can be implemented with new development. Even when you upgrade a street, you're required to upgrade and provide handicap parking. Now, there are exemptions for historic areas and right-of-way limitations, and there's alternate design standards that you can do, for example, on like a main street. But when we do mill and overlay Main Street, or when it is updated, we would have to look at how to incorporate that. And essentially what it is instead of a 22-foot long by 8-foot wide stall, you have to make it a little bit longer and just designate it as accessible. So again, there's definitely exceptions to this rule of providing a full-out handicap accessible spot.
Okay, question on that. Would you mind answering a question on this one? When it says where on street parking is provided on the block perimeter and the parking is marked or metered, accessible parking spaces shall be provided in accordance with the table. Okay. So if it's not marked or metered, then what happens?
If it's not marked or metered, you're not required to provide it, as of now. This is the way the DOJ.
Parking?
Yeah, you don't have to provide the accessible parking if it's not marked or metered.
So you don't have, so the handicap is not required then?
It's not required in that situation.
I just want to make note of that for our discussion later on at Turnywell Lane. Because
Okay.
I'd like to know how that applies, if it's applicable.
Okay.
Okay, so remind me. All right, thank you.
So moving on, another big change that we're proposing is with our streetlight standards. This is essentially, I'll just go over them all. The underground electric service is still required. It's required today. We're basically requiring all fixture types to be LED fixtures. And we're looking at 2 standards. One's on local streets. We would implement a prescriptive lighting standard, which means it's not based on a technical standard. And then on collector and arterial streets, we're going with what's called RP8, which is a lighting design standard. It's the only one that is nationally recognized that we would use. And typically those are done by our consultants when we upgrade a collector and arterial street. So the general layout criteria is making sure that we have a minimum of 2 lights at every intersection. With the exception of alleys, we would require 1 light. Signalized intersections would require 4 lights and can basically utilize street lights or lighting off the mast arms. And there are other standards there for roundabouts, at-grade railroad crossings, and bridge underpasses. Moving to local and private streets as we're proposing them, this is the prescriptive lighting standard. Max lighting spacing would not exceed 300 feet. They'd be required in every cul-de-sac and temporary dead-end street. And then there's some other general layout criteria associated with, depending on where the sidewalk is, the distance from back a curb. They all have to be a breakaway design, and the max pole height is 16 feet above finished grade. These are some of the standard drawings that are being put into the street specifications to help guide developers as they move through the process. The streetlight standards, as we're proposing them on local and private streets, would be owned and operated by Middle Tennessee Electric, and they would still be required to be LED fixtures. The city of Franklin would pay the electrical costs as we do within all other subdivisions. Street lights that are in downtown Franklin and on our arterial collector streets, we're gonna continue with building those and maintaining them ourselves, as we've done on McEwen and Carruthers Parkway. And again, they would all be LED fixture types. We're also requiring as-built for both Middle Tennessee lights and City of Franklin lights. Reason being is that we are paying that electric cost. We need to know how many street lights are actually out there as we are billed from Middle Tennessee Electric to make sure that we're on the same page. And so we're gonna start requiring developers to do as-builts, which really is just a fixture location. For city-owned street lights, we would obviously have to as-built the service connection points, conduit locations, and locations so that we can do utility locates. And because we're owning and operating them, we would really need good information into our GIS network as to where that information is. So these are some of the standard drawings that we're adopting with it. In the event that a developer takes on a arterial collector street, they would use these two light pole details and the LED fixture type. These are what we've been doing again on Carruthers and McEwen. So if you're happy with those light poles that are out there today, it's very similar. If you could open up the next exhibit, which is the lighting.
And while they're opening these exhibits, a big takeaway is that we already do these things on city projects. What we're trying to do is provide some more clear, predictable, and consistent standards for local subdivisions, where we get a lot of complaints as, why does this neighborhood have more lighting than this one? Why does it have different
Yeah.
lighting? So we're trying to be more consistent there.
And is the lighting usually, the distance between the lights, is that standard as well?
With the prescriptive lighting on the local streets, we offer ranges and maximum distances. So there are maximum distances. They can certainly put them closer if they like. With major collectors or arterial streets with city project, it's really not about standard spacing. It's more about providing uniform lighting levels.
Right,
So, but you will typically the way you do that is providing, standard spacing.
exactly. Well, the other question I had, Margaret, I'm sorry, did you have a
That's all right,
question?
you go on, I'll
You
finish.
sure? I just heard you. The list here said on the general design standards, and you don't need to go back to it, but it said, non-curb streets. On streets without curbs and gutters, street lights shall be placed no closer than 10 feet from the edge of the traveled way. Okay? What, is that so people don't run into these poles or something because there's no curb and gutter? Or what, and then it doesn't say the same thing for local and private streets, and I would think 10 feet would be quite a
It's clear
distance.
zone requirements so people don't hit them.
Is that just because there's no curb?
That's
because
correct.
there's
There's
no
no
curb.
barrier there.
All right.
When
no
there's
barrier.
curb and gutter, it's 30 inches off the back of curb is what we require.
Okay, that's the
Which is
other
what you see in
question.
subdivisions today,
30 inches?
about
30
30
inches.
inches,
Roughly.
Wow,
roughly, yeah.
okay.
They're basically the middle of the grass strips where we typically
Almost 3
put them.
feet then, okay. I was curious, okay. Ann, did you
Yeah,
have a
I'm thinking
question?
along some of the same
Yeah.
lines about already built areas, because I noticed they were saying even on a cul-de-sac, you'd need 2 lights and
Yeah.
everything, and that would be in people's yards where they do not have a sidewalk. There was a talk about if there's a sidewalk adjacent to the curb, then you put it on one side, and if the sidewalk is not adjacent to the curb, you put it between the sidewalk and the curb. But
Mhm.
there are plenty of areas that don't have sidewalks in them, and I guarantee you, I'm on a corner, I do not want that up in my yard.
Well, these standards are set up mainly for development as they come through the
Mhm.
approval process, and so the lighting will be in before they're actually selling the houses and people are moving in. There is a requirement that they should be located on lot lines to try to avoid that,
Yeah.
and that they should be 10 foot away from driveways. And so this is very similar to what we're doing. All it's really doing is establishing the prescriptive lighting standard of the 300-foot maximum spacing, 2 at every intersection, 1 at every alley.
Yeah, because what Ann was saying, if you had a cul-de-sac, you could be literally up to someone's front door maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you
With the
could,
light.
and even if you're
wouldn't be-
talking about,
Needs to
on the
be-
lot lines, sometimes the
But that
lot
usually
lines are
doesn't
not
happen.
10 feet away from the driveways,
Yeah,
not at all. And they're, I mean, you know, think about how the small lots that we're having now. I mean, I've got at least, I've got a quarter of an acre.
But if
But I
there's,
mean, nowadays, you have what? You know, you'd be lucky to get 10,000 square feet on a,
but if it's got a curb, then you're 30 inches.
Yeah.
And there's some room for negotiation there as
Most
of
well.
ours
If
is
they choose to
curbs.
use a breakaway fixture,
yeah.
Yeah,
Still.
most of ours
There's
is
also,
curbs.
and I
Still.
didn't cover this and
Okay.
I should have, there's also a requirement in there that, you know, with special approval and unique circumstances, that the staff would have the ability to change this. And the reason we put that in there is like an Avalon development where it is open ditch, private streets, large lot subdivision.
Yeah.
It may not make sense to put in the 300-foot spacing of light
Yeah.
poles on those
Yeah.
type of unique situations. So we have that in there for our DRT to look at, our planning and engineering staff to look at on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I can understand that. All right, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So we-
Margaret had a question.
You know, this has been on my heart for a long time. Since you have incorporated this, of course, we hadn't voted on it, but are you doing a lot of this now? Is it going well with developers, with their subdivisions?
Yeah, and we have a few examples that we're gonna walk through so you can see
Okay.
how some subdivisions are lit today and the impact that this requirement would have on them. And so if you're happy with the lighting that's provided in these subdivisions, we're improving it slightly from what they have
So
today.
we really need to go out and look at them.
Yeah.
But, and the names are on there, because I didn't.
Yeah, we
I
can
didn't try
walk
to
through
go
this
out.
right now, and then if you have
Okay.
more questions, we can be happy to
the
get you
short
more
answer to your question
information.
is no, we're not doing this now because we really have no teeth to enforce any kind of requirement now. So that we're trying to set that starting point.
Right now, it's being negotiated between really the developer and Middle Tennessee Electric.
In me?
And the city's not, yes, in Margaret.
And
Yeah,
occasionally
one of the
Margaret.
issues we've run into is one of our common notes on our final plats has always been final location and quantity of lights is up to Middle Tennessee Electric.
I
So when
know,
a property
but no
owner buys a
more.
house, they say, well, there's supposed to be a light here. We say, sorry, Middle Tennessee Electric changed it.
No more, right?
That's what we're
That's
stopping.
what we're going for.
No more.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
Right.
this is the Cornerstone development. Today, they have 14 existing poles, which are the little blue dots. If we had designed this as part of the standards that we're proposing today, it would have required around 17 poles. So it's 3 additional poles, you know, that cost spread amongst these lots. Not a big change. And this information, again, was presented to all the design professionals and developers, and there's absolutely no criticism or negative feedback with the proposed changes. We had our consultant put together a lighting diagram. This is the existing conditions of what it looks like out there today. With the proposed standards, the additional poles, this would be how it would be lit today.
So Paul, what's the difference in you see the circular diameter and you see these more compressed?
It's a different type of
It's
light.
the type of lighting that drives that?
There's multiple types
Okay.
of light, like a type 3 light, type
Mhm.
4 light. So one of the things by controlling and requiring a standard, we can actually require exactly the type of light we want on that street. So they're actually made to light a long distance versus lighting just an area, general
And
area
it
light.
puts
like a
more
park.
light on the actual
Very
street
similar to a
as
parking
opposed to
lot
into
light.
the yards.
Yes.
Correct.
That's exactly what we're showing.
You need to be able to stand at one light and at least see that there is another one.
That was one of the
Yes.
things we started with, absolutely.
So this is Creekstone subdivision. And so again, the red dots are the proposed, the blue are the existing poles. This one would have added about 7 additional poles to the design that's out there today. Not a big change from what they're doing, very minor cost in the big scheme of things associated with the development. This is the existing lighting plan out there, and this is how it would have been impacted had we done it per our lighting standards. This is out in Fieldstone Farms. This design had 35 existing poles. If we had based it on our standards, it would have been 42 poles. So it added about 7 poles to the design that's out there today. And this is Polk Place, which had 46 poles, and under our new standards, they would have had 58 poles. Again, a community that size, it's a very minor impact. And so as we look to adopt these standards, if you'd like to try to drive these subdivisions, you can, and determine whether you feel like it's adequate or not. We feel that the 300-foot prescriptive lighting is adequate and acceptable within subdivisions.
350?
300 feet. 300
Oh,
foot.
300
300
feet.
feet.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing is Middle Tennessee Electric today is prepared and ready to offer LED fixtures. And so that will not be a holdup. As soon as new PUD plans come through, this will be, as soon as it's adopted by the board, this would be something that gets put on their PUD plan, that they have to be LED light fixtures provided by Middle Tennessee Electric. And so we're happy to answer any questions that you have on the
We're not
proposed
going back
revisions.
though and changing any of these examples you've given. You're just showing what they would look like because we already have the data.
We're
on
just using
file.
real-world examples,
We
that's
wanted
correct.
you to have an example that you could go drive
Okay.
and
Yeah.
say you're happy
You
with or
can
not.
almost kiss it goodbye if they're not already in.
Oh, I understand.
The other thing that you'll see is, existing developments like a West Haven, we can't force them to change to LED fixtures. They'll continue to do it how they're doing it based on when their PUD plan was approved. So you would only see this on new PUD plans or new entitlements moving forward, once adopted by the board and alderman.
So should we make a motion to move this to the full board?
Please.
Okay. That would be your second, Dana?
Yes.
Got it.
All right, all in favor?
One
Aye.
quick comment,
Oh.
it's fine to vote. I was just gonna say that this is something we worked with Middle Tennessee Electric on as far as the streetlights. And not only are they now approving LEDs, but we're getting a reduced fee.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Yes, there's a reduced fee associated with this. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. All right, so it passed 4-0. All right,
We can spend $30 million in a minute and a half, but let us talk about streetlights. We're gonna do it for 30 minutes.
well, it's important. Consider it number 13, consideration of ordinance 2017-10 to set new speed limits on Captain Freeman Parkway and Berry Farms subdivision.
This is located in the Berry Farms development. We went out and did a speed study. The request was actually to reduce the speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 15 miles per hour,
To 15?
to 15 miles per hour.
We wanna do that. 15?
15 miles per hour
Oh,
is what they
let's
requested.
hear about it. Go ahead.
We did a speed study. The speed, 85th percentile speed was 23 eastbound, 25 westbound. We recommend going off of the 85th percentile speed, which is 25 and consistent with our ordinance for signing of local streets. So that is our recommendation.
And it's currently posted at 30,
It's
Currently posted at 30, so you're recommending 25.
25.
25.
All right. Any, you want to have a discussion? You want to have a vote first? Because usually we take a vote. May I have a motion
motion,
first?
Oh, I'm,
Move approval for 25.
All right,
second.
all right. Now discussion. Mike wants to, anybody?
I've been out there a lot, and I questioned, on one of the, there's a median, it's a narrow street, there's also parking there, and it's 30 miles an hour. And I think 25, I understand the numbers, I understand the evaluation. They're selling this as a as a walking community. There's businesses mixed with homes there, so people are always gonna be out walking, crossing the streets.
The reality is,
I don't
that in
think,
these neighborhoods, people will drive the speed limit, the people will drive the speed that they feel is safe. And so the speed limit signs become nothing other than a tripwire for the citation, period. And if we're not there writing tickets, then people do what they're gonna do. And it's 99% of the time, it's the people that live 100 yards away from the scene of the speeding that are doing the speeding. So the cars on the street, the pedestrians in the street, the sidewalks, all the visual cues, that's what slows people down. Because we could go out and sit on Lexington Parkway right now, or Fieldstone Parkway, and the speed limit there is 30. And there are people doing 50, because it looks like Mac Hatcher. And I don't care if you put up speed limit signs that say 10, they're gonna go 50, because that's what it looks like. So,
I challenge you to go out there and look at that section,
What do you think
Captain
it ought to
Freeman.
be?
I think 15 miles an hour is more,
All right.
is safer.
Let me ask you, let's look at
Now,
this
the
map.
people that
Let's look-
live out there are asking for this.
Let's look at
This
this
is the whole
map.
community.
Let's look, can we bring this map up? Exhibit A?
the problem with posting speed limits like that is people have a false sense of security
Not
about
that
it.
I'm aware
Well,
of.
they do,
Yeah,
but
not that I'm
Well,
aware of.
but when the person goes through there 25 miles an hour and he's at speed limit,
I hear the same
and
thing.
yet it's not exactly
at
safe,
West Haven.
and this is not an area that's gonna be conducive to having radar or, it's all too
Do you
small, too
need speed
tight.
humps? Where is the?
Go out there and visit
Okay.
this.
We're at Lewisburg, and is this in the main section, coming in the main?
It's in the middle of the existing sections of Berry Farms.
Okay, show
Rural
me on
Plains.
there, where's the commercial?
just south of there. You go around this
Publix is down there?
cul-de-sac, and then
Just
that
down
goes
here.
out to,
Publix is down there too?
Lewisburg.
Okay. So is that the main entrance you're talking about, coming in off of Lewisburg?
It's this section that it's flagged is the area that
Captain
is.
Freeman is one of their main streets. It's one of the main
Yeah.
spline roads to
It's
the
one,
neighborhood.
well, it's coming off Lewisburg, it's one of the main
Mhm.
entrances.
I promise you, if we go post this at 15 miles per hour and send the police out to speed, to write tickets, we're gonna have the other half of the neighborhood in here raising Cain the next week.
Why would it be
The, the other
30?
item is we can always go back out and reevaluate this as Berry Farms fully develops out, if it
Yeah,
comes back
you
up
could.
from the HOA.
When you drive in there, I'm trying to just remember what road this is. So what's fronting this street as you drive in?
It's when you first drive in, it's all residences on
It's
both
townhomes
sides,
like this,
townhomes,
homes.
basically
Yeah.
that
And
style.
then
But just south of this
circle,
roundabout
round,
is
is,
commercial.
is the commercial
Is the
where it
commercial.
starts, okay.
Well, I'll take
So-
that back. Some of these are, not apartments, but
Yeah, so that's where
The
the
condo
commercial
Row
starting.
houses
I just-
Condo units.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
go around the circle and that's where it starts. Yeah,
That's right.
okay, got it.
yeah, it's,
So in other words, let me ask you, so when you drive in there, you're saying all the residential front that?
That section, if you go to the next page, it'll show you the
And
commercial.
with sidewalks,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
Um,
If you scroll down a little bit, you can see where
Yeah.
the intersection is with Goose Creek.
now,
I
this
was,
one,
I was
I
having,
would probably concede.
I
but
was
that
having
other-
dinner in West Haven one night with some friends that live there. And as we sat there, these cars went shoo, 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 right in front of the restaurants. And I'm like, and they said, yeah, we have a problem out here because they just run right by the street and they don't pay any attention to speed limits here. And they think the speed limit's way too high in front of those restaurants. I think is the new Puckett restaurant out there, whatever the name of that is.
Scouts Pub.
Yeah, Scott's Pub.
I was
And
just-
I was sitting
Good
there.
job.
Throw 'em a
and-
little bone there.
And I'm like,
And where are
okay.
they open?
And so I hear all this, so are we gonna have the same issue here? Because I think they're gonna call Margaret about this unless they've already called you. Because they were saying
No,
they're-
I do West Haven every day,
Yeah, I know.
every day.
They've actually already contacted the
everything.
engineering department. We're studying the speeds in that area.
So let's talk about that. If I'm sitting there with that experience and these people are telling me this, and I said, hey, your alderman's, or Margaret Martin, call her. And they said, we will. Okay, I'm wondering, are we having the same kind of scenario
Okay,
here?
that's anecdotal,
Yeah.
and I'm
it
not,
is.
I'm not saying your experience wasn't what you felt like it was.
No,
but they
they
did
were
a
just what
study.
they were telling me.
Okay,
They live there.
they went out
every day.
and they did the math.
Right.
And
Right.
we can't just be regulating traffic based upon how we feel or how we want other people to
Willy-nilly.
feel. There's a rational basis for these decisions.
Sure.
Engineers do this.
Well, let me explain this about West Haven.
Very true,
because
Dana.
Carl has worked with me on this. And they requested that the speed limit on West Haven Boulevard be lowered from 30 to 20.
It's 30?
Because there's parking on both sides of the street, I think, and people running in and out, just like we were talking about.
Fast.
So Carl, I went to him and requested that he look into this. And he said, you've got a whole development south of this that has to use that street. And unless you get everybody on board and willing to go 20 miles an hour down West Haven Boulevard, you can forget it. And he said, because this is the kind of street it is, and it takes that kind of traffic, it needs to be 25. And I have not heard one more word since then, Carl.
One of the things you hear us talk about when we do neighborhood traffic calming program, when we do the petitions, is the zone of influence or the influence area. So that's one of the things we look
Yeah.
at is how many people does this street serve on a daily continuous basis? And that's how we help push forward with our traffic calming
Yeah,
program. A
'cause
lot
you've
of
got 'em
people,
with traffic.
with these kind of issues, really what we would suggest is let us go through our traffic calming program and see if something comes out of that. Well, there is a certain resistance to go through that because it is a long process.
Well, but
It is.
They want what they want, but they don't wanna, I mean, we've subscribed to objectively, scientifically based measures. We have a process for people to come in and say, hey, my neighborhood would like speed humps or stop signs or traffic calming we have rational basis decision-making, and we have measures by which people can collect and create a consensus in their neighborhood to regulate themselves. And in this instance, we have neither of those things satisfied. We have a letter from the developer, not one signature from the neighborhood, and they want something that is completely different than what the objective, rational basis decision-making suggests.
This development is not nearly built out. There's not a fraction of this built yet.
But not,
Okay, so there's
but
not,
no one that lives
number
there
one,
has
there's
written a
not
letter.
really a
them come back at that
self-contained
time.
HOA yet, because it's still within the developers. I had people mention this to me over a year ago, that this one sign that says 30 miles an hour seemed to be excessive through there. I would just say, if we put a car out there, time it at 25 miles an hour, and see what it looks like to go through that east-west
Yeah,
section
that's
of
true.
Captain Freeman.
Sure.
But that's what's happening now. I mean, that's what the data supports, is that that's what's happening every
And I
day. is
understand
they're
the
driving
numbers.
23 to 25 miles an hour is the most
if-
common speed.
If those people are saying, oops, this feels reckless, and they're going the speed limit, then somewhere there's a disconnect.
Yeah, the disconnect is the design, if there is one. But this is not a dead end. This is not a cul-de-sac. This is a way people go from one place to another. So when you go and start putting up speed limit signs, all you've done is lower the tripwire at which the police can write the ticket. That's it. You haven't changed behavior one bit.
Okay, why did Boyle ask for this reduction? What
Because it's
prompted them?
posted at 30 miles an hour through
Yeah,
there.
my
now.
understanding is it has to do with discussions with some of the residents out there in the area. And, you know, what we told them was we'd be willing to do a speed study.
Yeah.
We'd base our recommendation off the speed study, but we wouldn't go to 15 without really seeing the development really develop out, the commercial areas develop, and doing another speed study.
And they asked for 15, right?
They asked for 15, the developer asked for 15.
And I'm not aware of any street of this nature that has that low a speed limit across this whole
It
city.
beca-
I just
when-
would really question
When
going
there's more
that extreme.
volume, 15 miles an hour will be a problem. I mean, I'm not
Yeah, 15
unsympathetic.
is
It's
so
just that
slow.
we have to, if we were strictly concerned and motivated by safety, we'd make it 5 miles an hour everywhere. There's a reason we don't.
It's true.
It's because people have to go from one place to another. And
And-
because all we're gonna do is set the, like I said, I mean, the visual cues tell people how fast they're gonna drive.
Well,
Am I
you've
wrong,
got
Mr.
these.
Bob?
I can tell you, you're 100% correct. The design of the roadway
I
affects,
mean, yeah,
Well-
Fieldstone Parkway shouldn't look the way it does, but that's what it is.
Yes.
that's correct.
When I compare this to my neighborhood, it's 25 miles an hour in my neighborhood. The streets are much wider, there's no median, there's very little parking on the streets. There is very much parking on the streets here. It's almost solid. There is a median that takes up much of the roadway, and so you've got a narrow roadway with cars
problem.
and a median.
Which
It's
is why people
completely
tend to
different.
drive slower. I'm telling you,
But
if you
it's
went
that
out,
one
That's
that
true.
doesn't want to drive slower that's
But-
driving the street speed limit,
but that
and then
person's
it's
gonna,
not
that
safe.
person's gonna ignore the speed limit if we make it 5. They're gonna
Well,
drive
but
whatever they
then
wanna.
We can do behavioral modification by
you-
giving him tickets
Okay,
when
you
he
know who
exceeds
it's gonna
that.
be, Mr. Skinner? It's gonna be the person that lives 100 yards from there who's gonna be angry at us for setting a speed trap on them. It's not gonna be me get a ticket over there. I don't go there. It's gonna be the person who lives around the corner, who should have in their mind the idea that those are my neighbors and I shouldn't speed through here, because I shouldn't. But if we have to.
Let them police their own.
The simple fact of the matter is, this is not
We're
a
not setting
problem.
this up for a speed trap. We're setting this up for it to be safe
How do we
and
make it-
enforceable.
Oh, well, the enforcement is where the speed trap comes.
It's not a trap. It's,
When you take a street that was designed beforehand to be a speed limit, and then half the speed limit, that's a trap.
I challenge you to go out there and look at this yourself.
Well, I would say that I don't think we should set a speed limit for 1 or 2 or 3 people who speed through the areas. We can't do that. I agree with Dana on that. We just cannot, enforce these people through lowering it to 15, just so we get those people that are speeding, which probably are not that many.
15 miles an hour is hardly moving,
Yeah, it is.
hardly moving, snail's pace.
Go out there.
If you,
Try it
if
through a
you,
school district.
if you did this at 25 miles an hour, didn't you say that when this was checked, they were going 23?
23 and 25 miles an hour in opposite directions. So
The
this-
85th
85th
percentile.
percentile.
So most people were going slower than that.
Correct.
Am I understanding correctly?
That's correct.
Most people were self-enforcing a speed limit on themselves lower than the posted speed limit.
Correct.
Because of the cars and the narrowness.
Very
and
Exactly.
Because of
Yeah.
all the visual cues that have been
The traffic
designed
calming.
That's correct.
into the place to cause people to think there's people here. Which is why, if you go, and the same thing's true on Fair Street, with parking and
Yep.
trees and houses that front it, the speed limit on Fair Street is the same as the speed limit on Lexington
Sure.
Parkway. And I challenge you, go run this speed test on Lexington and Fieldstone Parkway. The 85th percentile is gonna be 50 or 40 anyway. It's gonna be well in excess of the posted speed
Go
limit.
on Third Avenue, 30 miles an hour, and I bet nobody has been 30 miles an hour on Third Avenue since they put the traffic light through and we've got a
My
green
point in all this
signal.
is, I'm not unsympathetic to the people that are concerned about safety. The
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, we can change it to whatever we want. Until we go out and write tickets, no one's gonna pay any attention to the sign anyway. And they're already traveling below the posted speed limit.
Where are we as
All right,
far as
may-
motions?
We had a motion.
What was it? Remind
Don't
me.
We did have a motion.
We had a motion.
Say that again. Motion.
There's a motion for approval.
Yes, we're ready for approval.
Was it an average of both of those?
You want to call the question?
I think my motion was 25.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
25,
was, it
yes,
was.
Which is what the
And
staff
Margaret
recommendation.
seconded.
I seconded that.
Okay.
It was just where we could place the device
Call the
along
question,
section.
Brandy.
Okay, well, again, I see
You
a
have to-
difference in the
you have to
southern
call the
section
question.
versus the east-west.
All right,
The motion was for 25 miles an hour.
yes. I had a motion and a second by Alderman Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. All right, moving on to number 14, discussion concerning parking on Turning Well Lane. Another one.
talk about this a lot.
Well, we're going to quit talking about it. No, the people are saying.
like the flowers come
The
up in the
problem
spring?
is, we've talked about it, nothing ever gets done, so now we're going to move on doing something.
Okay,
that-
so,
I talked to the HOA president this afternoon, I do have some information from her to share with you, but Paul, go ahead.
okay.
Thank
So
you.
right now, our current ordinances allow parking in the bike lanes on Liberty, Oxford Glen, and Market Street. The green line shows generally where it's approved to park within the bike lanes. It is not approved by ordinance on Turning Wheel Lane. One of the flaws in the design of this subdivision was really the fact that our planning department likes the houses to face the street, which we understand why they do that, but it's all alley load product. And with the alley load product, there's really nowhere for people to park when they come over, guests, friends, visitors. And so that's something that we are allowing parking on Turning Wheel Lane today. It's not enforced. We should update our ordinance to reflect that, and that's something we'll work on. So we were asked to bring forward options to help with parking on Turning Wheel Lane specifically, and so that's what we're going to present today. There are 3 options.
And let me just say one caveat here. There is some guest parking in the back of these buildings, but
Very
it's,
little.
but it's very little, it's very hilly on some of these, and if you park in the back, there's no way to get in the house from the back. So you have to,
Or know which one is which.
unless somebody wants to go down, open up their garage, you would take them through your garage and then take them all the way upstairs. So by the time they park, if you've got the grandmother who lives there and the granddaughter's coming to visit with her new baby and everybody, and they've got all the paraphernalia, and then you have an elderly couple, because we have numerous elderly people living over there, to park in the back, they have to walk the entire length of the 2 or 3 buildings, whatever you have, walk up the sidewalk and up the hill and then down Turning Wheel Lane just to get to the front door. So it's impractical, and there's no space between the buildings. The space between the buildings is totally consumed by the AC
I'm
condition.
convinced that we need it would be nice to allow parking. What's the best reason to disallow it?
All right, no, we don't want to disallow it. We're trying to, here, let me just say what the history is here real quick. This has been going on for years, and we've really never, we've talked about it. Brandy's absolutely right. We keep talking about it, but we're never doing anything about it, and it's time we move on it. And Paul will give us the different options here, but first of all, we've got to quit putting bike lanes in front of homes that front our residential streets. Because when you do that, you impede on the people's quality of life. They can't have guests over, they can't even have a delivery, because then you're in violation of parking in a bike lane. Most people want people to come and go, they want to have a party, they want to have guests over after church on Sunday, whatever the case may be. They want parking, and then the people stay 2 or 3 hours and they go. But when we put bike lanes in front of our residentials, we encroach on their quality of life. Then we have bike lanes on both sides of those streets. This road, and we're gonna have to look at this road for the future, because I will tell you right now, when Ovation comes online and people start pouring out the back end of that, and they start taking a right to go up to the roundabout on Liberty Pike, we're gonna have issues. We're gonna either have to do another lane totally up there on the right-hand side, or we're gonna have to at least get a dedicated right-hand turn lane onto Liberty Pike. We need to look at that. We need to start looking at that now. We need to be putting that in our list. But we have bike lanes on both sides. We have residents, and we do have violators, residents that are violating their own bylaws, that they're parking on the street overnight. So I said, the HOA lady, I said, you can regulate that, I believe. As an HOA, you can say, you know, because we have it in our bylaws in McKay's Mill. They just choose not to enforce it sometimes. But, so we have those bike lanes. Now, what has happened, people are parking there overnight, which they shouldn't be, and then we've got people parking on both sides now. And then it's hilly, and it's also curvy, so we've got issues. So that's it in a nutshell. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. So these are the three options. Option number
Some
one
history.
is basically where we cut into the curb and add an additional 8 feet of parking for a parallel parking stall. And so you'd basically have your 12-foot lane, your 4-foot bike lane, and then a 8-foot wide parallel parking. Now, when you do that type of option, more than likely it's more expensive. There's more construction that needs to be done, relocation of curb. More than likely, we're going to get into irrigation and have to move irrigation.
Right of way.
Yeah.
It
Well,
does appear that we have the right of
We
way.
have the right of way.
We have adequate right of way
Aren't
to
there
be
some
able to do
pretty
it.
steep slopes, though?
Yeah, but between the curb and the sidewalk, we've got that right of way.
It's pretty flat between the curb and
We
sidewalk
would be
in
putting
this
parking in
location.
on the other side of the roadway.
Other
It would be
side.
on the slope of the,
Okay.
Yes, other side of the road, and we have functional exhibits that we
It's on
can
the
show
other
you.
side.
Option number 2 is basically we just remove the pavement markings and we restripe it. You have 2 4-foot bike lanes. Those can easily be combined to make an 8-foot wide parking stall. Basically, you put 2 12-foot lanes, 8-foot wide parking
Do
stall.
away with bike lane.
Do away with bike
It
lanes.
would
On
be
both
the-
sides?
it would be the,
Both
yes, it would
sides.
be a share the road type
Share the road,
situation.
which we share
is
all
what it
over
would
the
be.
place. Yeah.
Option number 3 is you do nothing. You modify your ordinance. These are the functional exhibits that generally show it that we use to help develop costs associated with it. It shows the cutouts, option 1, where you would cut out parking. With this option, again, going to the ProAg standards, we would have to look at doing accessible parking, and so we do show that in this concept is what I would call it. Option number 2 is,
Before Paul let me jump in there and say the bold dark lines are actually the sight distance triangle, so there couldn't be any parking there. That's what those bold lines are.
Where are
Yes.
they? Where-
thank you.
At each of the.
At each of the intersections, you'll see a dark
Oh,
bold
yes,
line.
yes.
That's where no parking would be allowed irregardless of which option you choose.
From
Because
here
it's
to
too-
corner.
Yeah,
Yes.
And so this is option number 2. You can
Yeah.
see the Sharrow, which is a little bike with the 2 arrows. This is 2 12-foot travel lanes and an 8-foot wide parking lane. As Jonathan said, the dark bold line is the site
So
visibility.
if we did 2, that's taking out the bike lanes, right?
That's taking out the bike
But
lanes.
that would be an island of missing bike lanes in a road that has bike lanes on either end of where we took them out, right?
That is, well, yeah, yes.
In
There
other
would,
words, you'd be riding along, there'd be a bike lane, then there would be no bike lane, then there'd
wait a
be a
minute,
bike
no,
lane.
no,
so
no,
the,
no.
the
we're-
purple section up here would
No.
have bike lanes, the red section would not. There's nothing to
And
the
what
south.
about south?
That's a subdivision street, so it's a local street with no bike lanes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would just be terminating the bike lane prior to
Liberty
its
didn't.
current location of termination.
Correct.
In front of, you would be terminating the bike lanes in front of residential only, right?
Correct.
Why
Bike
can't
lanes
you
would
put
be
the
on this
bike
purple
lane
section.
between the roadway, the road lane and the parking lane? Why can't you put the bike lane there? Why
Because
does
there's
it?
not enough
enough.
asphalt
There's
from one
not.
side to the
Yeah.
other.
And that's option number one, where we cut into the curb and gutter and put these little bump outs for parking stalls.
Mhm.
But that
So-
costs a lot of money.
Let me ask you something. If you, say you're on Turning Wheel Lane and you're headed from Liberty Pike down to the park, okay? So if you take the bike lane out of the right side, which is the east side, and you restripe the road, there's still not enough room to keep the bike lane on the west side, is there?
No, there's
Okay.
not.
And typically, you wouldn't want to do something different on one side of the roadway versus
not-
the other
yeah,
for,
yeah, yeah.
for bikes.
Well, let me tell you, I'll tell you right now, I drive this road all the time. And there is parking there now, and bikes are just going down the road. And even when there's not,
There's a sidewalk right there too.
yes, and even when they're, and that's where all the kids ride. But and they go to the park on the sidewalk, and the sidewalk's quite wide. But I will tell you that a lot of times I've seen bikes right smack dab in the middle of the road, and the bike lane's been all open, and they don't use it.
Well,
So,
how much is option one?
So option one is estimated at $180,000. Option two, which is really the restriping option, is estimated at $140,000.
it's so expensive.
Option three is $2,100.
And how much parking do you gain if you do option one versus option two?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't count, I did
Yeah, you
count the
did.
stalls. I can't read that.
Option number one, your total parking is 18, with 3 of those being accessible parking and 15 standard parking spaces. Option number two, with the restriping option, you would gain 38 total parking spaces.
Well, that
with
makes
a-
it easier, it's cheaper, and it doubles the parking.
Yeah,
The last item I'd point out
Which
is
would be
if,
option number one, Joan?
Two.
That's option number two.
Oh.
That's
la-
doing away with,
40.
that's terminating the bike lane that's terminating the bike lane through the residential section.
But
Which
if
it
you
would,
do option three, it's $2,100 and all you do is make it legal.
the one
Okay,
thing I
wait a
wanted to point out is if you read your ordinance today,
See what I'm saying?
but I don't know that I wanna do that citywide.
wait a minute.
It'd have to be citywide.
What are you saying?
Well, because it's an ordinance of general application, am I wrong? We
Can
can
it be
change, if we change the
specific?
ordinance,
It
it's
can't be
changing it
specific?
everywhere.
yes, yeah, we would change
So
the,
you just park in a bike lane wherever you want.
no, we would specifically
No.
change the ordinance to be this street
The
specific.
street only,
This street specific, and that's
Yeah.
how the ordinance is today, and that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna highlight.
because we have that ordinance for Liberty Pike.
your-
There was
your-
a
Well, then
specific ordinance.
why would we do two if three is almost free and accomplishes the same result?
And what does three do
You can
again?
absolutely do three.
Paul, what does three do again?
Three just simply changes the ordinance to add turning wheel lane as allowable parking in the bike lane. Now, the one thing I did want to point out to you is that the way the ordinance reads today, you can essentially park in the bike lane for all these green streets. You add turning wheel lane, the one thing we have not addressed or have not done is really we should go back and investigate site distance at all these intersections
That's the
and put up no
problem.
parking signs.
Yeah,
And so that's something we need to clarify for safety reasons. And so we're in the process of
it
doing
was
that
never
now.
done, it should have been done
Okay,
So
already.
we'll-
So option one is construction and adds only 18 parking places.
Correct,
Costs $180,000.
yes.
I don't think, anecdotally, that doesn't seem like an adequate number of
No.
parking places to be a viable solution.
No.
Option two costs $140,000 and adds like 30-something spaces, and removes the striping for bike lanes,
Which
but
would be
doesn't
helpful.
require an ordinance amendment.
Correct.
Option three says you can park in a
Yes.
bike lane even though it's painted there.
That is correct.
Right.
But for
On
these
But-
specific,
These specific,
On that street.
these
I-
specific,
Doesn't give
my
you
preference is
specific.
two, simply because I don't want people parking in what is marked a bike lane.
You're teaching bad habits.
You're teaching bad
You are,
habits, because
yeah.
then people have to understand, well, this bike lane I can park in and that one I can't.
And,
I would rather pull up the bike lanes altogether and stripe
Yeah.
it for parking.
and the HOA is would support, from what I've heard today, they're supporting two. They're asking.
Let's send two to the full board.
Are these all options we
And-
can
and they can
construct?
come
We would do
speak to
these,
it.
or do
All
we
right.
need a contractor to do it?
we could do them with our annual contractor's
Okay,
help.
okay.
Um,
All right,
We can work it in
There
there.
is some irrigation that would need to be moved, and we would definitely need to meet with the HOA so that they understand
Yep.
this option, and we are proposing to do accessible parking with option two as well.
exactly.
So we'd want to make sure they fully understand why. regardless, we are gonna go back and look at the ordinance and the site
Yeah.
distance at these other intersections, because it is a liability that we have.
Paul
Yeah.
Dixie already started that undertaking.
And some of them were tied up today, and I said, it's not that important you come today. I said, I can report back to you, but I said, if we send this to the full board and we select one of the options, they're more interested in option 2.
I
And
move
they'd
that we
like to come
send
speak to it.
option 2 to the work
Already did
session.
that.
All right.
And
Work
I said
session?
second.
Yeah, I'm just
Second.
stating
All
it
right.
again, because I don't want people talking past the sale.
All right. All right, got it.
We said yes, don't
Yes.
talk me out of it.
All right. We have a
You'll see this
motion
again
and
on
a
the
second by Alderman Bransford, or
I'll be
by
firm.
Blanton.
Whoever, it doesn't-
Who's there?
Person down there.
I'm still thinking what Dana said.
Man,
All
these
right, we're
meetings are
taking
gonna
a
be
vote.
short when I'm in charge.
All in- Hey, it would be short. There's discussion to be had here.
After
All
the
in favor?
revolution.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Passes 4 to 0. All right, we have status updates, and you want to give us the transportation project status update, then the stormwater project updates, and then we'll go to the water and sewer projects.
Yeah, I know.
We covered several of these on the
Make
standard
sure you talk
agenda.
about 96 East sidewalk
Thank you.
timing.
You can't
Okay, I'll go ahead
shorten
and
that
start with
when
that
you
one while
have-
you're
I
waiting.
saw
I had a
somebody-
suspicion.
I saw somebody walking
I've gotten that
today
question myself.
So-
On 96, I saw somebody walking today.
What's going on with that sidewalk
in
is
the
the
yard.
question
Oh,
I
wait,
think a number of us are
listen.
getting.
You remember that it snowed one morning, what, about a week or two ago? I swear to goodness, there was somebody running in the snow out there. But go ahead.
With that project,
They
at
do
one
do
time,
that,
we had about
yes.
6 property owners we couldn't come to negotiation terms with. We've actually narrowed that down to
One.
3. Oh, yeah, we got
It
3.
was on the corner.
We've got 3 property owners that we have sent paperwork to our law department to proceed with condemnation. So as soon as we get a
Where's
date,
that at?
it's in our law department right now.
No, where,
Or
what-
I don't
where's it
recall the properties
located?
off the top of my head, but there were
Is
3
that
properties. we
Eddie
had
Lane?
No, I don't believe so.
okay,
Uh,
all right.
So that's, when the plans are done, the bid book's done. As soon as we receive a court date and order of possession, we'll move forward with bidding that project.
See, that's what I understand. Once you file that, then, once
we
you
can
file
go.
the condemnation, then we can go right on.
Yes.
We have to have the order of
You can-
possession.
We
You
would
have to
want the
have-
order of possession, so
But
you'd
I'm-
have
I'm
45 to 60 days.
I'm saying though, let's get that done.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
As soon as we get it back, we're going to bid.
my next door neighbors continue to, every time
Right.
I go out
I mean, is
outside.
there any, what kind of risk is there to put it out to bid at some point in that window?
We've done that in the past.
There's definitely a risk, because again, you're working on private property. So when you have
Well,
a-
we wouldn't proceed with work, but we could
We wanna line
start the
somebody
bidding
up.
process
And
earlier.
we'll get possession pretty quickly.
It's typically 45 to 60 days after they
That
file the
long?
paperwork.
After
Yeah, about
what?
45.
Jeez, that's
Once
long.
we file the paperwork and receive a
It's too
court
long.
date, it's typically about a 45-day
Have we
window.
already filed the paperwork?
No.
I would have to ask our law department, I don't know. We've turned the paperwork over to them, so I'm sure they're working on it.
But I'm
All right,
saying, how
anything,
hard
any
is
other
that?
discussion on any of these projects?
Well,
On these projects? Okay.
I have a project.
That you wanna add to
Are
the
we
list?
on transportation?
Yeah.
Any
well,
other discussion on transportation projects?
Okay.
All right, then we'll go to stormwater projects.
The big one I'll highlight there is the 100 block of Battle Avenue.
Oh.
Our designer's finalizing the exhibits and descriptions for easements and right-of-way. As soon as we have those, we'll start negotiations with property owners to acquire that. The plans are almost done, so we'll move forward with the design plans.
Which
100
one?
block of Battle Avenue.
All right, and we're moving forward on East School Springs, Jordan
Jordan
Branch.
That's correct.
Mhm.
We're gonna move forward on that, right?
Yep,
You
we'll
got my
bring that
memo
forward.
and everything on that, okay? The other thing I did want to ask you about the transportation, so where are we with TDOT for Phase 4? Have we heard back from them?
We received the finalized and signed paperwork, I believe it was last week. We've sent that paperwork to TDOT for execution with a letter asking them to issue the notice to proceed for NEPA phase as soon as they receive it. So we're waiting to hear back.
All right, all right, go ahead.
I was gonna also say the Goose Creek interchange lighting, TDOT has approved it. They're sending us a contract to sign to get that interchange lighting done. And so we're looking forward to signing that. I think at this point, they're gonna end up managing it, but we're waiting on the
will.
paperwork to see
All right.
how that proceeds. But I just wanted you to know
All
that
right.
it's
Do we
proceeding.
have any water and sewer projects to
Yes,
discuss?
I
Go
do.
ahead, Margaret.
Thompson Alley. I understand Joe can't do his job until you've done yours.
Yes.
The water and sewer side, yeah.
Spoken with them, and I'll be happy to follow up with them as well. But yeah, so we're looking at about 2 months from now in actually starting the water and sewer work.
Okay.
At which point Joe can take off with his, and I think I think your timeframe is several weeks, correct? To be in and out of there, is that correct? Right. Okay.
And we're doing all that work with our own crews, in both the
Yeah,
water and
that's
sewer
right.
improvements and the street.
Wonderful.
This email that Mark referred to, I just want to touch base with everybody on this, that one of the concerns expressed was that they thought we were putting a trail in because of some of the survey work we're doing.
Right.
We are not putting a trail in. It is potentially, it's one of the options that's been identified, but that's not part of this project.
No.
So what we're doing is a water and sewer upgrades, roadway improvements, and we're looking at some sort of neighborhood park feature that is of, whatever the feedback from the neighbors are that they would like to see there. Because we've got a little open space that we can work with.
The survey work being done out there right now is really boundary surveys for the city properties themselves. So they're not surveying for trails or anything else, but that's been an expressed concern, so, which is
So you're keeping in touch with them?
correct, yes.
Okay, that's good. All right, and then the other thing, I don't know, the traffic light, that's not water and sewer, but where are we with the West Haven traffic light?
We sent,
Carl's been keeping us pretty informed, but I don't know where you are.
they're moving forward with getting the design ready, but we've sent them the road impact fee offset request contract for them to review and sign. And so that's something that we're negotiating with them. Hopefully, as soon as we get that back from them, we'll bring it forward to the board. And my intention is to try to put a deadline on them to get the signal installed.
So
Right.
TDOT has approved it or blessed it. It's okay from that side.
TDOT has
standpoint.
approved the
Yes.
signal.
So we have cleared that hurdle. We're just moving along. I think the next thing is just make a decision on how the road impact fee offset will be dealt with.
Yes, and that's what we're working on right now.
Carl twisted their arm a little bit.
Mm.
That's good, that's right. All right, that's
All
all.
right, is there anything else?
Motion
Right.
to adjourn.
Second.
Dana.
Second.
All right, all in favor? We're outta here.
My
Waiting for
ADD
that one.
medicine wore off in fourth grade.